Okay, everyone. So now that we gave you all of that incredible Shades EQ information, it's time to apply our knowledge. This is Sydney. Our goal is that we want to make sure when she looks in the mirror that she still feels like a blonde. When we were doing our consultation, something else that we talked about was adding this sort of element of luster and shine into her hair and doing it through Shades EQ. So I'm excited to really just pick that apart for you. You know, the idea of wanting to still feel like a blonde, yet having lowlights in your hair, it's all about the placement, but it's also about the formulation and your series choices within the Shades EQ palette. So we know that because of that brightness that we want to ensure she has around her face, we are going to be doing all highlights around her front hairline. Then in the back hairline, we are also going to be doing highlights using Flash Lift and 20 volume developer. Now, an important piece of all of this is that the lowlights, those are going to be living in the interior of her hair. So it's important to also have an understanding of if you're going to be doing a weave or a slice. In our case, we're going to be weaving because we want to create dimension and softness. We would slice if we wanted to get coverage. We're going to apply our knowledge that we learned earlier about low lighting. You want to look at your client and say, when it's all said and done, what level do you want this to live at? And she's naturally a beautiful level 7. We just want to color match. That's really the direction we're going. So that tells me right off the bat, because of the fact that I'm low lighting on her dry hair and Shades EQ deposits true to level on dry hair, that I'm going to formulate at a level 7. My choices are going to be a 07N, 07NB, and clear. The N series is going to be that cooling effect, still with a natural foundation to it, but it has that blue-violet reflect. And then my NB is that red-violet reflect, also in the brown to tan for a natural foundation. And we now know that the NB series is the true natural. So when we combine an N and an NB, and of course clear to dilute the intensity of the tone, we get a cool, neutral, natural deposit. I mean, what a perfect just low light for someone who doesn't want to feel anything but neutral or cool. I was really going for brassy. I suggested just straight orange kicker for the low light, but she wasn't really into it. Disappointing, but we're gonna move forward. So for her zones 2 and 3, on zone 1, we want to just keep going with the cohesion of that low light. So we're going to be using still an N and an NB, but I'm adding in a little extra kiss. So 07N, 07NB, and 07M on her zone 1. The N, of course, and the NB, we know it's that cool, neutral, natural deposit, but the M is sneaking in there with its blue-green reflect to be ultra cooling, right? So it's just gonna be an ultra cool, neutral, natural deposit on that zone 1. And then on zones 2 and 3, the idea is that we want to make her feel bright, but we want to add that reflection. And so there's gonna be an element of warmth in that zone 2 and 3 formula. I'm gonna be doing 09V, 09N, and 09G with clear. The V series is that pure tonal deposit with that violet reflect, neutralizing, ultra cooling. And then our N series, of course, blue violet. It's cool, but has a natural foundation with that brown to tan. And then our G. So if you remember the G series or any of the series in brown to tan that are 100% warm in their deposit, it's a more controlled warmth. So it's a really great safe bet series to add into that zone 2 and 3 formula for a blonde to add a reflection. It's also really great if you want to just add it in just to scare them a little. Say, I'm putting in something warm, right? Watch me do it. Sometimes I like to pour it in front of them and I'll be like, it's happening, get it together. So the G series really is not in there to add warmth. The G series, or even to control the cooler elements, it's not even in there for that. It's in there to add reflection.
Oh, hello, friends. Adrienne Dara here, back in my color room, in my salon studio. And I wanted to interrupt this program because guess what? I changed my mind when I was formulating. That's right. I was on camera. I had in my head, this is exactly what my formula is going to be for zones 2 and 3. We're going to do a V. We're going to do an N. We're going to do a G. And then I thought, once I got back there, wait a second. I think I want to do an NV and a G. Have you ever been there? You go in with a plan and then you look at your canvas again in that last minute moment and you think, I'm going to switch it up. So I want to be clear. I wanted to keep all of that formulation know-how and know why in there, because any education on why you might choose a formula with Shades EQ is going to be helpful information. But in a real hairdressing moment, I thought, let me utilize the NV series because her hair was more porous, and I know that I have the safety net of the NV series being in the brown to tan background family to act as that sort of cushion to keep from any possible overtoning. So the final formula that I ended up using instead was 08 NV, 10 NV, 09 G, and clear. I did all equal parts of my series and equal parts of clear. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a breakdown. Now you have tons of information. Get out there and tone, my friends. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
So the biggest lesson that we learn here is that by having these key principles, reflect and background, and of course, evaluating our canvas and really speaking to the needs of our canvas when we are customizing our formulation, it really is going to make you feel more confident in the color room, and it's gonna make your client feel more confident when you are applying their color. So to begin, we are going to be sectioning Sydney, and the reason behind this is that when we go into a foil application and maybe we don't have a course of action, it can sometimes get a little out of control. So I like to set up my blueprint for my foil application before I truly get into the application as a whole. So, we want to identify where our client parts, and we can see that she just naturally tends to part in the middle. So I'm just gonna refine that middle part ever so slightly. It doesn't have to be totally perfect, but we just wanna have it in the general vicinity of where that part is lying. Then it's gonna be time for what I like to call section 1, and we are going to be just creating almost a triangle shape, if you will, at the mohawk area. So in order to understand what the width of that section should be, I want you to identify from eyebrow to eyebrow. I'll have her look down just a little bit. A great way to understand the depth in the interior of how far in that triangle should go is I like to take my highlighting comb and I will just lay it on the head and just kind of see where that curvature begins. I can really identify it with my finger here, and that's gonna help me to understand, okay, this is where that, that's how far in that triangle should go. So that's my very first section that I'm gonna take. I'll just sort of isolate this out of the way. So this way I don't have to get too confused. I want you to see what that looks like so far on the side. If I just sort of extend this ever so slightly, and Sydney, I'm gonna have you turn your head just a little bit, perfect. So we can see, all right, we're kissing where the eyebrow lives. Now we're gonna do the same exact thing on the other side. We don't have to worry about identifying where it curves because we've already done so. So we're just gonna match that to the other side of the head. We'll clip this hair also out of the way. It's gonna be almost a little bit messy at first, but it's so that we can create this beautiful organization. So let's clip off section 1 out of the way. The reason that I really like to identify this area first, even though this isn't necessarily where the starting point of my application is going to be, is because this is where the bold pop of that blonde is gonna live. If you remember from our consultation, something that Sydney really resonated with was wanting to look in the mirror and still feeling like a blonde. And so it's important that I just identify this first, that first triangle area, so it's gonna help me with the rest of the sectioning. Now we're gonna move on to the side of the head. I'll take those clips out that we just used to isolate ever so slightly. Now I'm gonna have Sydney just sort of turn her head down so that you can really see where her part line is. We want to next venture into isolating out from the top of the head to directly behind her ear. So I'm going to, let's kind of find where that ear is living. This is where we're going to be isolating out. So I'll start from the top of the head, I'll work my way all the way down. And for this section, because guess what? The sides of the head, this is actually where we're gonna begin the physical application. I'm not gonna knot those. I'll just sort of keep those out of the way so I know, all right, this is gonna be a starting point for me. The same exact thing on the other side, just making sure that we are isolating from top of the head to directly behind the ear, and just making that as clean of a section as possible. And we'll clip this out of the way as well. Then that brings us to the back of the head. In the back of the head, there's actually going to be 3 different sections that we are going to be doing. We'll be doing yet another triangle at the top of that mohawk area, and then we're just gonna be splitting this back into half. Big thing I wanna call out is the other important piece about doing full sectioning is that if you're someone who's ever gotten lost in their foil work, maybe you start in the back and you don't pre-section, this is a really great way, again, to just map out your foil plan. So it's gonna halt any of those desires to sort of not realize that you are over foiling until you're really in it. What I'm gonna do is first just divide it up into 2, straight down the middle, and I'll separate these sections. I'm not gonna clip anything out of the way yet because I have to do that triangle at the top of the head. So same thing in the back of the head that I did in the front. I'm gonna take my comb and I'm just gonna identify kind of where does that start to curve, and I can see it's right here. So I'm gonna match the same width that I did in the front, and we're gonna match that same width back here, just creating another V-like section. And let's turn her so you can really understand. So this section is gonna be the very last section that you are going to be applying your foil work. And for the other 2 remaining sections in the back of the head, we are literally just gonna be clipping those off to the side. There's no more intensive sectioning that needs to be done. So we already split this in half, but let's sort of re-split that, making sure again that it's as clean as possible. We understand that sometimes clients will have little baby hairs. Don't worry about getting all of that into the section. And then we are gonna clip this off. Now, something that I wanna point out is because I am going to be starting in the front side, you could even just sort of release this area so that way it ensures, okay, I know where I'm beginning my application, I know where I'm fully starting. So what I wanna do now is I wanna go through and just sort of spin her around so you can see what this full sectioning looks like. Why don't we start back in that front area? I'll have you look down just a little for me. We have that front triangle area. Then next, moving in to either side, the left and the right side of the head. The sectioning was from the part line at the top of the head to directly behind the ear. And then if we move to the back, we, just as we did in that front initial first section area, we found where that curvature really lives. And that helped us to establish, okay, what's the depth of this V going to be? And then we just split off the back into 2 sections. So now that our sectioning is done, guess what? It's time to do our application. So now, as we get into our application, let's talk about Lightener. So I'm using Redken Flash Lift with 20 volume developer. My ratio is 1 to 1.5. Remember, my friends, thicker is quicker. And so I like to have a thicker consistency. I also make sure I'm using a whisk when I am mixing my product because, you know, the preparation and the thoroughness and the detail that you put into just mixing your lightener is gonna set you up for an even greater lift. So just so you can really see the consistency of that product. Now, I think we already told you where we begin, but why not? So for our beginning area, it's gonna be on the side of the head, and we're actually going to be starting specifically in that side just section right by the ear, our little bit of a sideburn. Now, what's important to note is a lot of times, you know, clients will tend to have just little baby hairs here. Now with Sydney, we did talk about her hair, and something she had expressed is she did have some previous damage to her hair. And so our job today is to not only create this like beautiful, shiny end result, but our job additionally today is to really make sure that we're being mindful, we're not overlapping, we're being very cautious in the decisions that we make with our lightener. Now, the beauty, right, of Redken products is that they're always putting hair health at the forefront, but we also have to utilize our set of skills to make sure we're paying attention to that. So for our very first section, what I'm actually gonna do is take all of this hair and I'm gonna tell my client what I need. I think that's also important. So I'm gonna say to Sydney, I am actually gonna be pressing on your head, but I need you to sort of resist that pressure, because a lot of times what will happen is we'll press on their head and they'll sort of lean forward, and we want to make sure that we're getting as much tension as possible. I mean, look how nice and tight I was able to get that. It's important that you're just being mindful of what you need body positioning wise for your client. So the very first section, I'm gonna be taking my hand and just sort of holding up that sideburn area ever so slightly. I'm then gonna go in and take a diagonal section. There will be no hair in between the first foil that I place and the hairline itself. These are going to be in the hairline, more so micro baby lights. And the importance behind that is that we really want to get the detail work that oftentimes blondes are really hungry for. And when you take the time to do more of this precision foil work, it's really just allowing for a really beautiful, clean application. But I wanna show you something. You see how, okay, I've taken my first section, there's still a little bit of hair here. Hang on, Adrienne, you just said that there should be no hair in between. The reality is that you're gonna pick up the section and whatever falls, falls. It's kind of like when you do a long layered haircut, right? Whatever falls, let it fall. Because if you ever have taken a section of hair, put it in a foil, and you found that that hair was bouncing up out of the foil, and you're using your brush and your lightener to sort of glue down that hair, but it keeps bouncing up, well, that hair is screaming at you and it's saying, hey, I am not supposed to be here. So we wanna make sure that we're just paying attention also to the direction in which the hair is naturally falling. We're going to just take our very first section. We're really nice and close to that hairline. And this is where we're gonna be going in with our Flash Lift and 20 volume. I have minimal product on the brush to begin, and starting my application more so in the mids to the ends. I want the heaviest part of my product, or the heaviest saturation of my product, to begin to be really in those mids and ends. So that way, as I work up closer to the actual zone 1 area, I can just really focus on feathering more so, rather than if you put too much product in that area. And then you kind of find that you're a little bit in the hot seat. Having strong saturation is also gonna be important, but I wanna share something with you. The other reason why it's so crucial to make sure that you are paying attention to the direction in which you're foiling is, look at this foil. It's not slipping. It's staying in place. The reason it's staying in place is, of course, density of product, but also additionally, it's staying in place because I'm foiling to the direction in which the hair is naturally growing. So we'll close up our very first foil. And then the way that we're gonna be approaching the remainder of this hairline is we're gonna continue to work our way up until we meet a part of that triangle section. So what's gonna happen is our very next section is going to just continue to pivot, right? We're gonna keep pivoting those foils and working those foils along her hairline. Something else I wanna show you, Sydney has a great hairline because she has a lot of sort of different movement and growth patterns within it. We can see we have a little bit of a cowlick here, And so we want to make sure that we are shifting our foil work each time so that we're getting the coverage that she oftentimes maybe in the past hasn't seen and really wants. So the very next foil that we're gonna be taking is gonna be back to back to that of this very first foil. Why back to back? Well, I think something that's important to think about with a blonde is that we want to essentially always be creating multiple money pieces throughout the head, multiple areas where there's pop, there's brightness. Oftentimes, we pay so much attention to what the hair looks like when it's down that we can neglect sometimes to pay attention to what it's going to look like when it's back in a ponytail. And if you can be a master of both of those elements, it's really gonna set you apart, because if your client can love what their hair looks like no matter where they flip it, no matter if it's up or down, that is just such a special thing to do. So this next section, now that we've applied it, we're gonna close that foil. And now we've done 2 back to back. How many do I generally like to do in the initial sideburn? It really comes down to hair density, but I'm gonna tell you generally, if you do 2 to 3 back to back, you should be good, because now when Sydney puts her hair up in a ponytail, you can see she's got coverage in those areas. All of the foils that we're gonna do from this point on in this section, there will be hair left out in between. Again, continuing on a diagonal. The amount of hair though that you're gonna leave out in between, that is going to be up to the conversation that you had in the consultation, right? Is your client saying to you, when I look in the mirror, I wanna be lived in, but I want my hairline to be kapow bright blonde? Or is your client saying, I kinda want more of a 50-50 balance? So let's put another foil in, and then I'll show you the direction again that we're gonna go to complete this first initial area, because I'm gonna be repeating it on the other side of the head as well. So we're leaving hair in between, strong diagonal. Again, just reiterating that you want that heaviest concentration of product to be in that mid to the ends. Now, something else I want to show you. She has some really light pieces here already. Make sure you're kicking those out of the way. We don't want to overlap. We want to be cautious with her hair. So I just feather that down, and then I'm going to feather the remainder of the product all the way up. The other piece of this that I think is important to point out is that with most blondes as well, you have to be mindful of taking fine, like very finite sections, because every foil line is going to show. And when I foil, even though I'm always using Shades EQ to just really, finalize everything and tie everything together, I never want to use my Shades EQ to correct foil work that maybe was done too harshly or too improperly. I really just wanted to enhance the foil work. So now we can see we have 2 back to back. We have one with a small amount of hair in between. And the direction in which we'll be going from this point forward is going to be, and I'm gonna have you lift your head and turn it just a little bit this way, perfect. Is just gonna be working my way all the way up until I kiss and meet my triangle section. So now that you have an understanding of how we're going to be approaching our foil work on the side, I just want to remind you that same application will be done on this side of the head. You're not taking this hairline foil placement all the way up to the part line. That is just meeting either side and kissing either side of your triangle section, okay? But then we're next gonna move into our triangle section. That's gonna be the next place that we're gonna go. And so for that, we're just going to be, and I'm gonna take this out so you guys can really see. If we look at her hairline, we have a couple areas that we just really wanna be cautious of, right? We can see we have a little bit of breakage here. And then also additionally, we can see her hair growth pattern here. I'll just turn her a little bit more. It sort of changes than that of how it's growing here. And so in order to make sure our foils are really crisp and clean so we can give her that beautiful face frame that she's seeking, what I'm actually gonna be doing is taking sections I'll be doing 3 back-to-back on either side and creating a V on either side of the head. So creating that V so that these 2 foils kiss, and just 3 back-to-back and 3 back-to-back. Once we have done that area, it's gonna be time for us to move to the back hairline, because I just wanna keep reiterating to you what we are doing here is we are approaching the hairline areas of the head first. So let me turn her. In the back of the head, we want to make sure we're concentrating on the hair that is going to fall forward over her shoulders. Just as a reminder, we're just trying to create cohesion and consistency in the dimensional blonde that she has within her hair. So you might think to yourself, oh, okay, so you're gonna start here, okay? But what I wanna point out to you is that this hair falls back. We want to, again, respect the natural growth pattern of the hair. So the reality is, I'm gonna turn her just a little bit more. We wanna find, hey, where does the hair fall forward? And if I take this hair, I can see that this falls forward over her shoulder. So this is gonna be my starting point. I'm gonna keep it really simple in the back, because remember, we're doing a combination of highs and lows. So I'm gonna do 2 back-to-back slices in the back hairline, and I'll be doing that on either side of the head. Then it's gonna be time for us to get into our lowlights. I'm so excited to take you through all of that. We will be doing lowlights exclusively in the sides of her head, but we will in the mohawk areas, in those triangles, it's gonna be a combination of both highlights and lowlights. So let's jump back over here, because we have some pre-existing foil work already. For our interior, the goal is that you want to foil all the way to the part line. That's right, that means that on both sides of the head, our foils are going to kiss. Now, what's important to keep in mind here is that you will be fanning these foils as well. So here in the initial hairline, as you see, we were sort of fanning those. We'll continue that process. But then we will have all this interior that we need to approach. So I'm gonna be starting on an angle, and I'll keep fanning and fanning and fanning until my foils start to become more horizontal. That means that by the time I reach the top of the head, my foil work is completely horizontal. Why? Well, the hair on top of our head falls straight down. So this is in the same movement and direction of what we were talking about, foiling to the direction the hair is growing, and of course the direction that the hair is falling. As a reminder, in that front triangle, which is where we jump to next, I'll have you look down for us. Let me take this out. At this point, you have isolated out your money piece foils. So again, remember we did 3 back-to-back on either side, creating a V. All of the foil work you'll do from that point on is going to be on a horizontal. And for the horizontal foils, you will be alternating between low, high, low, high, low, high, low. Notice that I end on a low light. Every single section, my friends, you're gonna end on a low light. That's really important. Why? Because have you ever ended a low light application on a highlight, and all of a sudden you're blow drying the hair and you're thinking, it kind of looks like nothing happened, right? It still looks blonde. It's because by having the blonde be the last foil, you're creating a casting of blonde on the hair. We wanna create a casting of low. So you'll continue on a horizontal. But then what's going to happen is you're gonna get to this end of the triangle. And you're gonna notice that, oh my gosh, this is a pretty strange area that I have to foil. Don't worry about this, you'll leave it out. I want you to just separate it, and these will be tip outs. Remember, everything you're doing is going to be so that you can create beautiful cohesive foil work, but you're also gonna be toning this as well. So you'll be creating an additional level of depth in that root by having that N and that NB and that M But this is why zone toning is so crucial for all of these services. And then to really tie up our application process in the back, you don't have to worry about doing any type of low light or highlight in this back. You've done your hairline foil work. She still has so much natural base in there, as you can see. So just to really kind of comb this out, she has so much natural base in there. So we don't need to additionally highlight that or low light that. It tells us though that we want to concentrate on this back triangle section. So you're gonna alternate between low, high, low, high, low on a complete horizontal in this area. So you're gonna start on a low light and you're gonna end at the top of the head in that mohawk area on a low light. So now we have completed our zone toning application and Sydney is officially a lived-in blonde. It's such a testament to how Shades EQ and the power of Shades EQ can enhance a blonde. Also, I want to remind you, we put lowlights in here. So you might think, or a blonde client may think, oh my goodness, I'm going to be darker. We were actually though able to make her look brighter even by putting lowlights into their hair. I think the biggest piece of this when it comes to low lighting, of course, is understanding the proper placement, but also just the idea that we formulated at the appropriate level. We were able to really create that depth within, therefore making the blonde look brighter. And also, on top of it, I mean, when we looked at the way that her hair looked right after we had lifted it, after I brought her back to my station from the shampoo bowl, I said, Sydney, please close your eyes, okay? Close your eyes, hold your breath, and make a wish, because this looks real crazy right now. But it's important to get that type of lift. It set us up for success. We were able to tone at the appropriate level because we lifted appropriately. And all of those foil lines have now been eliminated because we have these core principles now of Shades EQ to understand what levels we want to formulate at for which intentions. I mean, just the smoothness that this has created and the difference from the raw lift to the final product is amazing. The real case is that I'm just like any other stylist. I have moments where I'm staring at the toner in the bowl and feeling nervous, but then I remind myself of the core principles of Shades EQ, and it gives me the clarity and the confidence I need to tone appropriately.